So, thank you for your time, thank you for coming. Please introduce yourself to our audience. What's your name, position, what do you do here?
So I am ashleyriott Blake. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Andromeda Entertainment. We are VR publishers. We create transformative VR entertainment experiences.
Yeah, so VR has become quite a buzz in the last decade, right? And with the upcoming PS VR, new equipment, there has been a stir in the community, in the news, in the media. Are you happy about it? I mean, since you work in that industry, could you tell me more about it? Since it's not so wide aware, people are not so aware how many possibilities VR can do for you.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Mainstream adoption is something that we've been struggling with for a long time. I've been in the industry since 2018, so I'm still relatively new to VR. VR as a whole is still pretty new, but the PSVR releasing in February was amazing. The Quest 2 is an amazing headset. We see new headsets all of the time coming out onto the scene. I'm looking forward to the Apple headset that has been rumored and been talked about for quite some time. I think that's going to be a massive moment for VR. But yeah, I love VR. My personal story it kind of has to do with VR, and I talk about VR in like it taught me to walk again, which it kind of did. And so I just want as many people in the world to play it, know about it. I want developers making games. It is an unbelievable medium, the potential for healthcare, tourism, education, socialization. There's really no ceiling to it. So yeah, I'm super excited. I remember in 2018, if I told people I was in VR, very few knew what that meant. And today I can tell people and they've heard of the Quest, or they've got a Quest, or they have a friend that has one. And so I think in 5 years it'll be even better.
Yeah. Do you think there is a specific genre that kind of popped up in video games in VR? Because we had a guest before, she spoke about horror games, and we see a lot of spike in popularity of horror VR. So from your perspective and your publishing deal, do you have kind of a statistic about that or something you can tell us more about it?
Well, it's interesting because VR is definitely really good at some things and it's not as good at others, and one of the things that VR does really well is it immerses you into an experience, so you feel like you're there. And so horror is definitely a really visceral, terrifying. Some people are fine, but for me, horror games are really elevated. I love horror movies, and so I like that type of stuff. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, those are some of my favorite old school games. And so I love how impactful VR is. That being said, those same attributes can be added to education, tourism. During COVID, a lot of people use virtual reality to visit places, to do education of cultural sites, and they've done a lot of studies and found that it's actually as good as actually visiting the site. It's going to these places virtually, and it increases empathy, you learn about history. Same thing with education, virtual reality transcends distances, it decreases costs with educational software. Same with healthcare, software. There's a lot of studies being done on virtual reality exposure therapy for things like fear of heights, which is where a lot of these horror bases come from. But agoraphobia, you can get in VR and practice public speaking if it's something that you're afraid of, and so it does expose you to these fears. But as far as what does well, I've got a tower defense game, I've got a Dungeons and Dragons game, I've got a rhythm game, we have puzzle games, we've got hand tracking games. We do everything. Our whole thing is transformative. We're really looking for people that are doing innovative, fringe of the paradigm shift development. It's really challenging, but really if you love your project, if it's something you're passionate about, and if you can get in there every day, that's going to make it stand out. I have found that the projects on the VR platform, rather than fitting into a mold, tend to be from teams that are really passionate about VR. They love the game. They're creating the thing that they wanted to play, and that tends to, regardless of genre, push them through. And then I find that once those games are successful, others start to kind of replicate them or emulate them. But if it's something you're passionate about with VR, it's very hard to develop in. So if you love it, you're probably going to have the best bet. So I don't know if that's a really general thing, but we don't even have a type. We've got 15 games and they're all different. All of them are different. So
there is always an audience for something, right?
Yes.
And mostly that VR is still sometimes not available for people just because either they don't know about it a lot. So do you think that your work can work from other similar companies or game devs or anyone who wants to work in VR? Will that be a brighter future, but in this year perhaps? Do you have some kind of expectations for 2023 or maybe 2024?
Yeah, you know, I'm always excited about VR, but I've been saying so just as to let you know, I've always thought that VR is the next big thing. I really believe that virtual reality and head-mounted displays are the next iteration of at-home computing. I'm kind of an evangelist. I'm very optimistic. I believe that by 2030, head-mounted displays will be outselling mobile phones, and so that will be what everybody has in their homes. You know, when you talk about accessibility, I think that console games are very inaccessible. I think the reason, you know, same thing with virtual reality that's tethered to PC. There's a lot of regions where that type of entertainment just isn't possible, where mobile games is primarily where they play. It's why it's such a massive audience and why so many folks play mobile games. And I believe that the headset, once it's mobile and is your computer and is your workspace in your pocket that you can put on whenever, and it's got the form factor of glasses, I believe that will allow this platform to have the impact that the mobile gaming platform has, but in a much more immersive, much more complex way. The type of environments and entertainment that we can create in VR is just so mind-blowing that you can do artistic pieces, you could do like educational pieces. It's just so unbelievable. So I think that the future is very exciting. I think this is exactly the time that you want to get in. There's funding everywhere. We are solving problems in the industry that nobody's ever seen or thought about. You know, when VR first started, we were wondering, how do you show inventory in a virtual space? How do you show people where they are and where things are? And these are problems that we are collectively solving. There's funding for it, you know, research funding, government funding. This is the fringe of technology. So if you're looking, if you're a student, this is a really, really good place to be, I think. And especially this year, PlayStation VR 2, amazing opportunities there. Developers are making tons of money on the platform. And if Apple comes out with a headset, you know, this year or next year, this could really be the time of the iPhone moment for virtual reality. So,
will that also be possible for disabled gamers? Because there has, fortunately, has been a more talk and more media coverage about people who are not unfortunate enough, you know, to use about the accessibility in games. So do you think VR is also in a perfect spot to reach out to these type of gamers because they want to do stuff, but they kind of get forgotten or just left behind?
Yeah, no, I think it's actually one of the best platforms for this. And as technology increases, we're going to see this even more as we move into BCI, like brain-computer interface technology. There's a mixed reality headset called the Galia, which has EEG, EKG, real-time data, brain waves, eye movement, eye tracking, hand tracking. This is very expensive technology right now, but in the future, when that's more accessible, what this could mean is we could have control schemes where players, we're already seeing this with PlayStation VR 2, but perhaps they can control with their gaze, or perhaps they could control with just their thoughts, right? Which is sounds really weird, but this is something
it's possible, right?
It's possible, and if not their thoughts, then specific muscle groups. And so people who aren't traditional or not using games the way that the majority of folks are using them still can play and really enjoy the, you know, there's hand tracking. Alchemy is doing some unbelievable things for accessibility. Every game that they make can be played one-handed, can be played seated. They're very intentional. They're really good about subtitles and, you know, all sorts of things like that. But in the future, you know, PlayStation VR 2 has gaze controls. You know, you can use your eyes, and there's games that use that, and that's just the beginning. You know, and it is a little scary because some of this technology, you know, has a lot of privacy aspects to it, which is why I think it's also really important that we act responsibly. And we always, that was what I talked about here at Reboot, was you know, ethical applications of XR. And, you know, as we move forward into this future where we have this unlimited data, that we're really safe and that we're really slow and that we're really intentional, and we need new devs, we need fresh perspectives, we need people in school, we need people from all industries, healthcare, research, training, all of that, to look at this tech and see what we can do with it, because I think it's going to be more than games in the future. I think it will be the workspace, I think it will be the computer, I think it will be the phone, I think it will be how we communicate with each other, and that's really exciting, at least to me.
about that future, bringing new people to learn and use this stuff. Do you have any advices? Do you have any like program languages or courses or something you can give them advice, tips or tricks to try to look into it, look into the VR technology?
Yeah, Unity, so Meta's a really great resource. They've been in the virtual reality games since the dawn, and they've got tons of back-end stuff. They're a great place to start if you're like just looking to start developing for virtual reality. Unity, Unreal, both I've got teams that work in both and create experiences. I also have teams that work in proprietary homebrew custom languages, and they're building experiences with those so that they can really utilize like music or visualization techniques and really push the technology. So Unity, Unreal, those are both great. Meta is a great resource to reach out. And then government, right? Government is doing so much for advanced tech, you know, future funding, things like that. There's a lot of money going into this type of entertainment. Video games is a massive multi-billion-dollar industry, and so, you know, your local government may want to give you money to go to school to study this. They may want to give you scholarships to start working on games. If you've already graduated, they may pay for you to do research or to work on applications or to just learn it because it is so new, right? We are being paid to like work out the kinks. And so yeah, check out your local schools, check out your local institutions, look for scholarships, look for grants, you know, look for Meta. Game developer resources. Channels like this are great, you know, to find out more information. They can reach out to me, you know, I do a lot of mentorship in VR, my screen name's ashleyriott, but just talking to others, you know, going to conferences like this is a really great way to get started if you can. If you can't afford the tickets, but if there's one local to you, oftentimes you can get in for free if you volunteer or offer your time, so that's a really great option for students. I hope that's helpful. There's a lot of paths.
Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities, but you actually made quite good points about it. Just not, you know, pinpointed into the abyss.
Yes.
But you know, to stem people into that. So thank you for your time. This is like the last day of the conference. So enjoy the last day of this year.
One more panel, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.